Got it. Okay, Laura, one last question. Refresh our memory on your ramp up, your traction so far in users.
Yeah, sure thing. So today we do about 1.4 of annual recurring revenue. That's split out about amongst about 180 logos and more than that of teams. But that's our rough ramp up today.
Okay. And how is that ramped up over the last, say, 6, 9, 12 months?
Yeah, so year over year, we've grown the business about 2.5x. Go a little bit further back, it's probably about 2.7, 2.8, but that's about right.
All right. Thank you. Good job.
Cool. Great. So maybe with all of that, what we'll go ahead and do is dive into the product. So I'm gonna share my screen here. Let me know when you can see it. We're actually first gonna start in probably somewhat of an odd place, which is another company's website. So we're here on LogicGate. Let me know when you can see it.
We can see it. LogicGate.
Okay, fantastic. So there are a bunch of different ways people engage with the 4Degress product. So we have our own web application, we have mobile apps, the like, but one of the kind of important ways people leverage us is through our Chrome extension. And what this Chrome extension actually enables you to do is look at any website around the web and understand if your team has connectivity into that person or company directly from the page. And so here, as I look at LogicGate, you can see the little 4Degress icon here. This yellow indicator is actually a sign that your team has relationships at this company already. And if I click it, it's actually going to reveal kind of what those relationships look like. And you can literally look at through them here, person by person. You can click into a record of any given one of these people, the score, the strength of the relationship, they're all embedded here too. Look into a record of a person, get more detail about them, who on the team knows them, any tags or areas of focus that are embedded here too.
And you can do that for any website?
Any website, if your team has connectivity, what basically happens in the background is you land on the page, 4Degress detects the URL of the page that you're on, essentially runs a search through your team's collective relationship network, and then like shows that little yellow indicator you saw on the LogicGate's page, if it in fact comes back with any matches of connectivity you have into the business.
So are you built into their browser?
So in this case, what's happening here is through our Chrome extension, which is one of the many ways
yes.
people. So that's right.
So same question, said a different way. Do you have to have an API into their web page?
And we do not need a API into LogicGate's webpage or anything along those lines. What's happened here is
you're just searching my computer because you know my contacts, you know my calendar. You're just searching for anything in my history that says LogicGate or that's been to this URL. So if I visited this page.
More robust than that. So what's happening is you land on LogicGate's page, we find the URL of the company, we go and then do a few different forms of searches. The first is what you've described, which is, hey, find me any person who the team's communicated with who has like a LogicGate, like ending web page or ending email domain. We also take that URL and then we basically generate a profile about the company. So then we're also saying, find me anybody who seems to be an investor in this business, or a former employee, or someone who has a Gmail address, but when we've done an enrichment about them and their current roles, it seems to be that they have some sort of relationship with LogicGate. And so all those results you were seeing on the right initially was an agglomeration of all of those put together.
So not to get too far into the weeds early in your presentation, my apologies, but so let's say that there's a management section for LogicGate and there's a guy named Bob Smith, and does your software, you're not API'd into them, but do you just do a text search, find the word Bob Smith and LogicGate, and then go back and figure out whether I have a Bob Smith in my contact database?
We don't even have to do that. So you don't have to go find a Bob Smith or the like. What we're doing is we're saying, cool, you landed on the LogicGate page. Here's everyone you not only but that your teammates know. So anyone in the group or organization who's using 4Degress, who is either at LogicGate today, used to be at LogicGate, is an investor in the LogicGate. And the way we were able to do that is through either A, looking at the email domain of the person you've communicated with, B, enriching data about the company itself, so we know like who its historical investors have been, things along those lines, or C, doing enrichment about people. So basically, whenever you interact with someone via email and calendar, we pick up the email address of them, and then we try to inflate a profile about them. So think grabbing their current and prior roles, locations that they're based in, and the like. And so if any of that kind of profile enrichment suggests that this person's tied to LogicGate, they will show up in those results.
And so we keep talking LogicGate. So I just want to be clear, is it any corporate website, or just for now, you're able to do LogicGate for some reason?
Let's pick another one. So I was pick Upsy with another friend of mine.
Pick,
Clarence, in business.
no, let me throw one out, please.
Okay,
Say,
sure.
say,
There's no guarantee I'll know them, but go for it.
all right,
So I think how it works is he from the URL from the upsy.com or wherever the .com is, whatever the domain is, they run that domain across your contact information, what's on your calendar, what's on the email, and that's how they come up. That's one way of how they come up with stuff. So yeah,
I get it.
Hey,
But
hey,
so let's-
I'm Lordy, use Upsy because Clarence Betha is a former.
No. I asked this question. Don't redirect my question. Stay with me first,
Cool.
please.
I'm with you.
So,
What you got?
I'm sorry, David. Let's throw in Goldman Sachs just to see what comes up.
Goldman Sachs is probably going to have a lot. I don't even know Goldman Sachs' website, so I'm going to have to go search their name real quick. Cool. It's just goldmansachs.com, straightforward enough. Cool. So now you're going to see, we land here on the page. You can see the little yellow indicator here. If I click it, it's going to show you a bunch of results. You know, a bunch of people tied to Goldman. You can see through, hey, cool, we know folks who are current employees.
And
former
and
employees.
this is Goldman Sachs relationships with people in your organization, or just
That's correct.
Okay, so you'll be able to so show me that connection. Like show me a connection and who in your organization. Oh, so that's the 4Degree person connected to. I see. Got it. Okay, I see.
Cool. So, yep,
That's
the
really
Goldman
cool.
Yep. And if you wanted to do the Upsy one just for kicks, because I know, David, it sounds like you were curious about maybe that specific example. So
Yeah,
flip back to Upsy.
Clarence started in Minneapolis.
Yeah, Clarence is a friend of mine, actually. We went up to Upsy's office probably right before the pandemic, when he had just like closed out his A round to go like celebrate with them, which is cool. But so yellow indicator, hit it. You can see Clarence shows up at the top, but then also I know some of the people on his team over time, some of the investors in his business that are all popping up here.
But this is going to be one last one. This would be really interesting. Sure. Tweedle, TWEEDL, music.com.
Interesting.
Who's emailing Tweedle?
Yeah, I don't know if I know.
Music.com. Yeah, let's see what comes up.
I don't see the yellow on top of the screen here by our icon.
Well, who's that? Who's that?
Who's that supermodel?
Yeah. So I was hoping that I would have been in your contact. So I was curious to see if my connection to you registered this. That's what I was going with.
I don't think
so. Now my big question is,
he doesn't have you as Tweedle.com. He has you at Relentless.com.
But that should have found me because I left, like the AI should have found it if he, but maybe we haven't connected.
Do you have anywhere in your public profiles that you are at Relentless?
Yes. Oh, no. Yes, no.
Well, his email, his
I have a Relentless email address.
So you have a Relentless email address. The tricky part is probably knowing that this Tony at Relentless Venture Partners is in fact the same Tony that is at Tweedle, right? And that's actually probably the hardest part of things like this when someone doesn't have a public profile that has like their information about where they are, is what we call, what's the right word for it? It's basically entity resolution.
All right, so basically this system sucks, clearly,
Yeah, there we go. That's the answer.
That's a little harsh.
I'll take it. You got me.
All right, I just wanted to see if that connection would have popped up.
Cool. So that's kind of how this sort of thing works in practice, right? Is that it's kind of searching the team's base of relationships. It's trying to identify if there seems like there's any connectivity between people on your team and this organization or this person, being able to surface it to you on the company site.
Can I ask one more question since we're down in the weeds? Because this is a good example, Tony. And so I'm just curious. I heard what you said earlier that there's different. You don't know which Tony it is. But why didn't you have any Tony Abrahams in your database at all? I mean, is he in your computer? Shouldn't something have popped up? Because you've had calendar meetings, where we've been on there. There should have been something that popped up.
Try Relentless Ventures, maybe.
Yeah.
Relentless Venture Partners.
Relentless Venture Partners, cool. So
Hey Tony, are you not listed by name on that website? Is the Tweedle site have your name
Yes,
on it?
my name is on there.
Is it? Okay.
All right,
I'm listed by name.
one sec. Cool. So we'll hit this. Got you both.
Cool. All right.
Cool. And probably the reason why I think too, the question here is it is difficult to know that the same Tony or the same like Anthony Abrams that we have here is the same one that's at Tweedle, right? And the reason why we don't know that, at least I'm guessing, I have to probably look through the pod specifically to confirm, is that the Tony on probably like a LinkedIn or any sort of public profile probably doesn't have those two work experiences connected in some way. And
Correct.
so that, right? And so as a result, we could make the assumption that those two Tonys would be in fact the same person. But if we did that, there's a chance we would be wrong. And it is usually a bigger sin to our customers to suggest that there's a relationship somewhere where there is not than the other way around.
Good logic.
Cool.
I get it.
Cool. So a couple of different examples of a few different cases there, but that's kind of how that Chrome extension capability works. And so any site around the web, as you kind of see here, including a few examples, like we got to run.
So how come David didn't show up?
Say again?
How come David didn't show up?
I think it's because we use David as David at Brightstone. So that's the email associated with David that Ablordy's been using. Right. And neither you nor David have added Relentless to your social media on LinkedIn. So it's not picking it up.
Got it.
Cool.
But like on
So-
Relentless, I'm assuming has a LinkedIn profile, right?
Correct.
And so I don't show up as people under Relentless Venture Partners.
Have you gone to Relentless and connected to it?
Oh, I don't know.
Let's take
No.
a
Yeah,
look
so
together. We can-
If you haven't done that, then you don't.
I see.
But we could do that. I was sparing everyone time to do it.
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I got a hard stop at 3, so don't let me disrupt you. Is that the demo? Is that the extent of the demo?
No, it's not. Yeah.
Okay,
we're
so why don't you continue with
one
the
part of the
demo?
way through. Cool.
Okay.
Another quick example here actually is this email that we were going back and forth on, Boris, where you asked me those questions on Conspire. As you can see on the right-hand side, that Chrome extension actually serves as this profile page of the person you're engaging with as you in fact engage with them, right? So you
Right.
can see person, role, any historical interactions you've had with them, details about them, and the email addresses you've communicated with them on, any areas of expertise or focus they have or focuses here, things you can do
Oh,
like set recurring
shit.
reminders to re-engage them.
This is feeling like Big Brother of Lord.
And this is popping up next to you. You just open up an email trail,
Yep.
and this is what's popping up.
That's right.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, and where is your yellow icon? Is that the yellow thing next to it?
We don't need a yellow icon in the Gmail inbox,
Okay,
like, because
all right.
yeah.
Lord, who did the business rule architecture to lay out the software?
Oh, I'm not sure I'm familiar with that phrase. Would you mind going a level
No,
deeper and describing what you
who
mean?
laid out you create the business rules to go in and make these connections. I mean, who's your software architect? Who's the designer? Not who coded it, but who designed the software?
It would be myself and my co-founder. We were the two who at least figured out the sorts of things that we thought were important to build, in concert, of course, with spending time with our customers.
Yeah, it's very elegant. It's very nicely done.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cool. So this is like another way that this kind of surfaces as you're engaging with people in your inbox. This is true here on Gmail. It also works in Outlook. We have an Outlook at it that does a similar thing.
So what happens when you click make an introduction? How does that work?
Yeah, that was my exact question.
Yeah, sure thing. So let's say I want to introduce kind of Boris to somebody. I'm just thinking off the top of my head that there was someone, let's say I wanted to do it with
Your partner or something. So
okay, I can do, yeah. So I'll go ahead and do this. What it's going to do is like search, identify people. First, I can ask David to see if he's interested. It actually has these things kind of auto-generated.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because some people don't like these blind introduction emails.
And then assuming that both were interested, and I can hit the make intro and get a similar sort of thing to take place.
oh wow, this is a good platform. This is a good platform.
It doesn't take much to get Boris excited.
No, I'm telling you, between Calendly, that's like telling people here, just like find a time and book it. So I haven't gone back and forth with people in a long time. And something like this, where it's like you could auto generate, here's the introduction I want to make. Really helpful.
What's interesting is you have Boris's name in the intro highlighted. What happens if you click on that as an active link? So what happens when you click on Boris?
You can see there it's a LinkedIn link. So it actually allows them to quickly reference who the person is and determine if they want to, in fact.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That was going to be the fault. I was like, it would be nice if that was the LinkedIn link. So it is what it is. Cool.
Yep.
Does LinkedIn go this direction? I mean, LinkedIn's got half this functionality already. Do you think that they're a competitor to you in a year or two?
I'd be surprised. I think the biggest challenge for them is that if you think about the way the LinkedIn graph was constructed, right? It was meant to rip out as many contacts from your address book and like Gmail and like whatever place as possible, because what it wanted to do is create as expansive of a graph as possible. The challenge with that is that you actually lose a lot of context. And so the problem that we help solve for a lot of our customers is not just do you have connectivity here, but who's your best path in? How strong does that relationships need to be? And LinkedIn can't give you any of that information, nor can it really retrofit that graph with that sort of context. Time it doesn't have access to the information to do it. And so I think that's part of the challenge for them. And then the second part of the challenge is if you think about kind of where LinkedIn's been spending a lot of its time and product energy, it's actually about getting people to interact more in the LinkedIn platform itself. LinkedIn's turned into much more of a kind of social and like almost like digital media feed than it has become like a product that generates this sort of utility for its customers. And even if you listen to like the LinkedIn earnings calls and like, that's where their attention heads. And that's on the side of the business. So I don't see it being a challenge, both for structural as well as for focus reasons.
Moreover, I spoke to the founder of LinkedIn the other day. He said the relationship aspect is something he just hadn't been able to wrap his head around. And that's his major shortfall. That was one thing he always wanted to do, but they just couldn't figure it out. And it's more around relationship scoring. And one of the ways he was thinking about it was having like fellow employees score each other in terms of how they feel about them. But then he goes, no one wants to be rated on the platform. They'll close down their profiles. So he's thinking about another, he just really couldn't think of a good feasible way to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. And this sort of seems like a decent way for them to think about it.
Maybe LinkedIn's a good acquisition target.
I was thinking about it, and that's Microsoft.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it, an introduction at some point in some clever way. But don't want to scare a Blordy away with the big, Microsoft machine where he's trying to innovate and break what they're doing, or not necessarily break, but come up with something big, and doesn't necessarily want them to know his secrets yet until he's gotten into outer space,
Yeah.
To your point, my focus right now is on building, the biggest and most robust company possible. Like, there's some world in the future where those conversations may make sense, but that's not where my attention is.
Following. Thank you. So this is a great feature. So far we looked at the browser extension. We've looked at the extension in Yep.
Cool.
Is that an email extension or a Gmail extension?
So that extension you saw there works in Gmail. We have an Outlook add-in that works in Outlook.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So I switched over. Another piece of the 4Degress product is what we describe as like relationship intelligence.
I'm sorry. So you have Outlook. Do you not have what's
Lotus?
No. Well, I guess Gmail is one, and I guess those are the two business applications, right?
No, it's not. The other big one they use, if I could say it, I think is it Lotus Notes? Is that the other big inbox and calendar in corporate America?
Lotus, I suspect, was probably a lot bigger in like the 1990s. Oh,
yeah.
In most corporate markets have fallen pretty dramatically. I don't anticipate. We haven't come across a single customer.
You have Apple functionality?
Yeah, iOS.
Yeah, iOS.
we do not have an Outlook add-in or a Chrome extension thing that works in Outlook, or sorry, in Apple.
But a lot of the companies that are Mac driven use Google.
Exactly. Almost every customer, we have not come across a company today whose underlying mail server, like the place where those things are happening, are not either Microsoft Exchange
or IO or Google.
or Gmail.
Right.
Cool. So maybe switching over to this real quick. So this is part of what we describe as like our relationship intelligence, which is that we search the world for news and information about people and companies within the network that you have, and also things that are happening in your universe that may suggest opportunities to re-engage with these people. That's everything from, hey, this company you've been tracking has recently been involved in a transaction recently, to this key contact in your network has recently moved jobs, right? It's gone from company A to company B. To, hey, we detect from your calendar that you're flying somewhere. So in my case, I'm actually flying to Dallas in about a week's time. It's detected that from my calendar. I didn't do anything special. I just like.
I'm sorry. This is the 4Degress dashboard for me as a user.
That's, yeah. This is one of the forms in the web application that you can engage with.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yep, you're good. And so we pick up all this stuff and then surface it to you in the sort of context. All of this gets sent to you via email as well as like email digests over time as well. And so meant to help know when and how best to engage with particular either people, companies in the network.
So, Lloyd, what's your search for this? I mean, if I get a meeting coming up with somebody and this dashboard comes up, are you essentially using Google to search it and then just feeding me the top 10 leads? Is it that simple?
It's not quite that. So these first aren't necessarily people who you are meeting with right now, right? So like these are people who you have in your relationship network in some domain. We actually do some prioritization of this that will include things like if you have upcoming interactions with them, but it will also include things like what areas of focus do you seem to have, like in either your business or like your areas of expertise, to also things like how strong is your relationship with these particular people? When was the last time you engaged with them? All are kind of ranking factors within the algorithm that you're seeing. And then within that, we go and like search the world, as I mentioned, for information. And so it's not like top 10 leads. It's like, hey, did you know that this person whom you haven't spoken to in a while and is in a domain that you seem to care about has recently, like their company's recently been involved in a transaction, right? Or did you realize that, hey, this person who you've been tracking maybe as a key point of contact for a company you're trying to work with has recently changed jobs? So none of that's reliant on you have a meeting come up.
That's really dope because like, I know, you're out there trying to raise capital. I see these are all fundraising things. You're out there trying to raise capital and you see that, oh man, this guy, I haven't seen him in 3 years. He just closed a $5 million round with so-and-so. That's good intelligence for me. Now it's a reason to reach out. Hey, just wanted to congratulate you on your fundraise. Who'd you use? What investors did you interact with? How do you find them? What do you think about them? And can you introduce me to them? Right. So all of those things, are really cool. That's a really cool thing.
Awesome.
And I assume there's AI embedded in the algorithm, so it kind of learns you more and more.
Yep, exactly. And the nice thing about these is because we serve these up to you, we have a sense for if you took action on any of these, right? Because we're plugged into email and calendar. And so as a result, we can use that as a mechanism to learn if the sorts of recommendations we're generating, which ones you're taking, and then refine that sort of capability over time. Cool. So maybe moving to the next bit. So I've been showing you this here in the 4Degress product. We'll come back to this in a second. I mentioned before that we also plug into other CRMs, both another data source for us, but also as a place where we can like invite or kind of surface some of the intelligence we have. So I just opened up a page here on Salesforce. Took a company here, Cameo, which is like a company here in Chicago. Think of this if you were, a sales team or a team at kind of Morgan Stanley who's maybe using Salesforce for some particular entity or focus. But if they want to understand connectivity to a company, like as they are directly in their Salesforce record as a team, like we can also bring that to bear here too.
How do you prioritize what CRM you sort of build the integration with?
Market share amongst the domains that we sell to and work with. And so in our case, Salesforce is by far the biggest. And so like that's where we spent it.
What are the other top two that you build it for? Is it only Salesforce right now?
Yeah, today we only did Salesforce. The next
Yeah.
one we would probably do, if we were to do a next one, would probably be HubSpot, but Salesforce right now
Yeah.
is still plenty to run.
Yeah, in corporate America, for at least the guys that I know, were all Salesforce.
Exactly.
And how are you quantifying the strength of the relationship?
Yeah, great question. So based off of the models that we've built, those models in general are based off of two things. The first is the communication patterns between the person on your team and the external person. I say communication patterns rather than pure frequency, because you might go back and forth with someone a bunch while you're setting up a meeting. It doesn't mean the relationship is strong. It just means that you went back and forth a bunch. And like, if anything, maybe that the communication was inefficient. We should have all been using Calendly, right? And so you can't use frequency alone, but things like, were these emails or were these meetings? Over what time periods did these occur? What was the length of the subject lines? Natural language processing on the text. All of that can give you a much better understanding of strength. We also pair that with the second category of signals, which are typically around overlapping work experience. And so, for example, if two people were at IBM at the same time for a year, that means absolutely nothing, right? IBM's massive. They're tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees. The chances that those two know each other, unless they were on the same team together, which you can sometimes figure out, is quite small. Whereas if two people were at 4Degress for 2 years together, the chances that they know each other is very strong, right? Because 4Degress is a small company. In that period of time, we have had hundreds, if not thousands of interactions. And so those two categories of signals broadly, but again, if you're being more specific, a set of machine learning models based off of this. Cool. Maybe popping back into the 4Degress product for you real quick. So switching here, we also give you a view for your and your team's base of relationships. And so like each one of these rows, as you see them here, is a person you and the team are connected to, communicating with the like. Each of these columns, data fields about those people and about those companies. I mentioned before that we do a lot of this enrichment for you. So things like someone's current and prior roles, who on the team knows them, how strong the relationship is, where they're based, these categories or areas of focus are things that our product actually generates for you. And so what that allows you to do is to search through, slice through the network, collaborate on that network without having to do a lot of data entry to make all of this happen. Cool. So like as a tactical example, if I wanted to take this network and say, cool, show me all the people within it that are investment bankers that we know, as an example. It's going to filter this list and give me that 13,000 odd people and come back to me with the subset of folks who are in that domain in our network, or in my case, it's north of 200 folks, so naturally plenty. You can go further down that path. Cool. And then for any given one of these people, you can dive into a fuller profile of them. So in the same way you saw with Boris, where you could see the history of the interaction and detail about their prior roles and the like that are also kind of embedded in this sort of interface as well.
So, Lordy, I don't want to jump too far off of the technical side of the presentation, but what's your sales cycle? When you go out, talk to a corporation, what's your sales cycle? And then second part of that question is, how do you see your distribution channel or sales force? How do you see that growing over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yep, so I'll take those in turn. So first question was on sales cycle. Today, it's about 45 days. That's the median. If you were to take the parts of the bell curve, we have some things that close as quickly as a week. Like those can go incredibly quickly, and those are awesome. Those tend to be on the boutiquier side. And then for some of our larger customers, those will sometimes take up to like 3 months. So those are probably the two ends of the curve, but the median's 40 days.
So from a pricing, sorry to interrupt you, from a pricing perspective, what's the sort of downstroke? You know, if it's under 25, it's usually within their budget. If it's under 100 grand, they can usually make that decision quickly. What's the pricing downstroke for this decision?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the team that's signing up.
Sure.
Right. So if we're getting a team of 100 folks, then that downstroke's going to be in the probably in the 45 to 50 range, right? If we're getting a team of 10 folks, then that's going to be closer to like the 15 range. And so our median today is probably closer to that latter category, but we do have some cases of the former.
So is your customer today a 75 to 100 person corporation?
So we have some folks who are significantly larger than that. And so we kind of have some higher end of the curve. If you took the median customer today, it's probably roughly that size organization and then team with it.
Got it. Okay. And so in building out your sales force, what's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, so somewhat depends on the capital that we have to fuel it, right? But in general, today we have 2 AEs. Their primary job is handling inbound that comes in. I would envision the next phase being adding some BDRs to do some direct prospecting. So these 2 sales reps we do have spent about, call it 10% of their time, generally speaking, doing some targeted outbound, and we're seeing some results. So it leads me to believe that with some additional folks who are doing nothing but that sort of prospecting activity, particularly targeted higher ACV prospects, that there's kind of real opportunity to be unlocked there. So that would be the next move. Then beyond that, we'd probably add some additional AEs to close some of the things that are coming beneath them. So if you ask me in the next 12 months, my intuition is our sales team would go from a team of 2 to probably about a team of 6.
Did I hear that right? That currently you're just fielding inbound sales calls?
So the majority of what we work with today are inbounds, and then we have about 10% of the sales reps' time that we ask them to do some outbound. That also generates some opportunities for us too.
Wow. Pretty good growth for not really pushing too hard.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the benefits of working in these relationship-oriented industries is that people talk to each other, and so we actually get a fair bit from referrals and word of mouth. We've augmented that with some content. We've augmented that with some digital acquisition, and so it definitely helps. But I think there's opportunities to step on the gas from an outbound perspective for sure.
And I love those products where if I have it on my computer and I make that introduction, the intro that comes in, nothing happens on the other person's computer. It just comes in with it says like Calendly, right? Calendly comes in, you look at it, you're like, what's this Calendly? People investigate it themselves and generate interest that way without really a lot of sales effort on your part. So kind of an interesting model.
Yeah, and we think there's opportunities to continue to juice that too. So for instance, you see the little button here on the right that shows share contacts. What that actually allows you to do is pick a subset of the network of relationships that you have and make them available externally, right? So as an example, if you had, either it's portfolio companies of yours or maybe even just like other venture partners who you were close to that you wanted to like keep a shared list of, maybe it's LPs that you've had great relationships with, or other venture partners that are higher up in the capital stack. You could easily share that and make it accessible to them. They don't need to have a 4Degress account in order to be able to access the page and search and manipulate it. But in doing so, they're getting direct exposure to the product in ways that lead to more inbound demo requests for us.
But technically, I guess, are you sharing a file like you would do with Dropbox? Do those contacts still stay within my computer, or do you actually export data?
So we do have a separate function which allows you to export data. What this is actually like basically a web page that third party would be able to go to and like search through the specific restricted set of kind of relationships with the proper filters on it that you made available. But still, they're still on your 4Degress instance. No one else has access, like is able to like download or take them away from you or anything along those lines.
Right, that would make sense. So it's a separate sandbox, if you will. So nobody's going to be able to have access and come in and change the phone number of one of my contacts on my hard drive.
Right.
Cool.
Awesome. Related to this concept is there may be critical relationships of yours, whether they're LPs you're talking to, other VCs, founders you really like, but you just want to make sure you're staying on top of and regularly engaged with. Maybe these are folks that once every 6 months or once every 3 months, but like you want to make sure you're touching base. So what you can do is actually use our product as a way of driving that sort of activity. So you can see 6 months, 3 months, like the product will then compare that to the last time you spoke with that person and give you a view for if you're overdue to reconnect with them. Let me 45, but let's see what other things are worth diving into. So
Lordy, so do you think that people will use this in conjunction with a CRM, or would they ever use it instead of their CRM? Is this a rip and replace, or is this is it used in a complementary fashion to an existing CRM?
I'm thinking both, right?
that's exactly what's going to be my answer. We definitely have deployments where the answer is both. And so what we typically find is that in some of these professional services, financial services firms, they're trying to shoehorn Salesforce or something else to accomplish these sorts of relationship oriented goals. And so in those cases, the answer is like, hey, you could use this alongside Salesforce, but really like Salesforce isn't doing what you are trying to accomplish. And so the answer is you should just use 4Degress. There are also folks who are coming to systems for the very first time. And so when juxtaposed with traditional CRM versus this, might also choose 4Degress instead. And then we have cases where, we go deploy with a larger organization and Salesforce is doing a great job of pipeline management, but like not at all a good job of the sort of relationship intelligence that we've been talking about, where we'll deploy alongside and integrate. And so we have both cases. Cool. A couple other things that maybe quickly worth showing. So I showed a bit of kind of how, actually we had an interesting conversation before about like 4Degress alongside LinkedIn and the like. It is also worth knowing that that same Chrome extension actually has functions on LinkedIn as well. So if I were to click over here to someone like Deep's page, you see Deep's a second degree connection of mine. The challenge we were describing here about LinkedIn pops though, which is like, I have all these mutual connections, but like, are any of them ones that we can actually leverage? The right-hand side, you can see on the page, okay, cool, 3 team members, no Deep, David knows them the best. I can instantly kind of use that as a way of getting in front of them. And so any LinkedIn search, any LinkedIn pages you do, that same sort of dynamic searching is taking place here too.
Yeah, that's the functionality that our guys at LinkedIn wants. All right, so it'll be our best kept secret, Ablorde.
Exactly.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. Let me popping back to this real quick. So within this view, I've shown that you kind of have this capability of like sharing contacts and like seeing historical interactions and setting recurring reminders and the like. You can also save specific views of contacts that you might want to be able to revisit for different purposes. So I did an example before of like filtering for investment banks, but you might also filter for people who are based in a specific city or who have specific areas of expertise. And then you can save those lists and then be able to like revisit them over time whenever you want to. Awesome. Cool. So maybe with that, I'll pause. Any other questions related to product capabilities, like other things related to the business?
Blorde, we started to record about, I would say, 8 to 7 minutes into our discussion.
Sure.
You did send me the information, but for some of my partners that won't be looking at the email that you sent to me, could you just please quickly, eloquently go over, how you compare to a Conspire, whether or not you had relationships with people at Conspire before know of the team, just the short version, the difference in the nature of your business, just so I have that recorded, so when my team looks at this, they could hear it from you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I don't know how eloquently I will do it, but I will try.
You did it eloquently the first time.
Okay, cool. Fingers crossed. Cool. So in terms of Conspire, we do know the Conspire team. In fact, actually, when we were starting 4Degress, I got a chance to connect with the CEO, and I consider him to be kind of a mentor. We learned a lot of lessons from how they built the business along the way. So there are some similarities between us and them. The similarities is we both help teams, or people specifically, I should say, kind of understand who they may have connections to. We both leverage email data as a way of doing that. We use email and calendar data alongside some other sources. They also use email data, so there's some similarity there too. And we also do some relationship strength scoring, as did they. The state of the art in terms of how one might do that has advanced a lot in the past, like call it 8 to 10 years between when they started Conspire and when 4Degress is today. But there are some similarities in that we both tried to do that work. In terms of differences, so the first is Conspire was primarily a B2C product, so meant for individuals to be able to try to understand connectivity, whereas 4Degress is a B2B kind of paid product. And so big difference is Conspire was generally free. We charge money, and so from a revenue standpoint, our revenue this year is probably orders of magnitude larger than like the lifetime revenue that Conspire generated as a business. And so pretty different profile from that perspective. The second is because we focused heavily on teams and this B2B aspect, we have a bunch of team workflow and collaboration capabilities like I've shown you here. So everything from being able to search through the team's base of relationships to setting recurring reminders with critical relationships in the organization, figuring out how best to collaborate with the group against those over time. Those weren't something that was a part of Conspire's feature set, a value proposition, because it wasn't the domain that they were focused on. Third is around relationship intelligence. So another thing that we've seen here today is that we go and search the world for news and information about people and companies or things that are happening in your world where your relationships can help give you advantage. Those weren't things that Conspire did. Similarly, our automatic categorization of people and companies that you saw before that allows you to filter the network by different areas of expertise also fueled a lot of our intelligent recommendations are things that were not a part of Conspire's value proposition or capability set. Last one I'll mention, which I mentioned a little bit before, is just the customer profile. So we focused our business today in a bunch of these relationship-centric domains. So think professional services, financial services. It shapes a lot about the business, so revenue, the like, but also what we choose to build, our customer acquisition strategy. Whereas for Conspire, it was kind of an open to everyone product that didn't have any such focus. And so I think that was in part why it probably struggled to monetize and scale into the business. So those are some of the differences between.
Say one financing question while we still have 8 minutes left. How much have you raised to date? What was the last valuation and how much you're raising now? And what's the valuation you're looking for today?
Yep, sure thing. So to date, we raised about 2.8. The last round we raised was about 2 of that on a 9.5 post. Right now, we're raising about a $6 million round. Don't have a valuation on it yet, talking to people, and we're going to let the market and the people who we work with figure out the right answer together. We care way more about the partners than we care about optimizing for our slice of the pie today.
And you're looking for a lead? You don't have a lead yet, right?
Yeah, no official lead at the moment. And so depending on structure and partners will determine the right way to maybe structure the round.
And existing investors were taking a piece of that, right? 2 million of the 6 or something like that?
That's about right. Yep.
Good. Okay, yeah, as I said before, impressive company. Nice job building a great company so far.
Yeah, very kind of you. Lots of work still ahead of us, but we're making progress.
Yes.
Did I make the introduction to the guys at Plug and Play?
I don't think so.
All right, they have a new diversity program. So part of it is like a pre-accelerator program, which you're probably aged out of already. However, they do have a standalone fund as well, as long as you sort of solve solutions for companies in any of the verticals that they deal with. I think financial services are definitely a large one, but in general, I think any other vertical that has a sales component is probably someplace where you could be useful as well. So I think that's another good intro that we could do in a couple of weeks. And right, because I think what you need are just more institutional clients like clicking the button.
I mean, every client has sales, some sort of sales management process. So I'm really impressed by your ability to address all the questions around all aspects of your business. I really, we haven't stumped you yet. You know, you haven't said I need to tell that's a question for my CTO or something like that.
Even though you told him his product sucked.
We're normally
we're
normally gentlemen and wouldn't say something like that, but Tony's our outlier. So I'm gonna have to clean up this video.
Maybe the measurement is how far you get into the conversation before you're told that.
So I only said that to see if it would shake you, and it didn't.
Nah, he's unshakable. We got to go back to the drawing board to figure out how to stump him.
All right, so that strategy didn't work, guys. The next time we'll come up with another strategy. That was planted.
Unstumpable. Great job, Lorde, and pleasure learning about it. So sharing, we're going to share this with the rest of the team. The only big question was really around Conspire, and I think we have a lot to discuss internally. But I told you what I'm going to be working on is an investment memo for 4Degress, and that's awesome. How you're talking to 3/4 of the investment committee, but that's sort of how we we start the process. I know you've asked about that previously.
I have a question, unusual question. So is there a way we can play around with this thing?
Yeah, so we have a few different ways that we enable people to play around with the products. One is happy to spin up a couple accounts. We also have a sandbox account. We also have some video demos, but any one of those are open to you.
And I would love to, if you can spin up an account where I can play around with it for a week or so and just kind of like see how it facilitates connectivity and stuff, and just feel some of the effectiveness. Like the demonstration is very effective, but it's you moving stuff around. It's not me. So user friendliness and all those kind of things come from trial and stuff. So I really would like to play around with it and see if I can make some connections in a week and see how it feels, and just like, oh wow, that was really dope. And who knows, maybe we'll be a customer too.
Hey, and one quick question on that, Blorde. Do the contacts auto-populate, or do I have to go in and sort of like populate all the contacts?
When you first start with 4Degress, our product goes backwards through your email and calendar history and pulls in the historical contacts that you communicated with, and then does a bunch of enrichment that you saw. And so short answer is no, but that's how it works.
So delete all those unwanted text messages, Boris, before you load it up.
And actually, that's another question around, like, even with sharing data, right? Because sometimes we don't know where laws and regulations are going around how much sharing all these external apps can do. So how much like on the data side, what are you guys looking at in terms of like, right? I made a comment saying it feels like Big Brother because that was awesome data. But like, what are some of the unique insights that you're not talking about now that you have, or features or capabilities or data that you could, that you could benefit from?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, right? I mean, I do think one of the things that's possible when you do some of the things that we're doing is getting an understanding kind of globally of who's connected to who in the world and how well. And if you think about the value of that sort of graph, like think of it as like the LinkedIn graph, but with context across like industries and roles, right? We'd have to be really careful about how we use that. And so today we keep that all like very segregated, like we don't like stitch it together in any meaningful way, because we want to make sure that our customers feel very comfortable about plugging in those sorts of sensitive systems to us. There's some world in which like if you got to a level of scale to where you could anonymize enough interesting information to like make that graph ultimately visible and searchable to people in some pretty unique ways. So we haven't done anything with that yet, but it's certainly kind of a possibility that emerges as the business continues to grow.
And Lord, if I could go back to Boris's last question about onboarding as such, you said there's really not much to do. And that's pretty impressive if you can go back and search through a variety of different programs, even though they're all within, say, Windows or Outlook. But if you can do that completely opaque to me, that's impressive. So let me ask the same question again. Once I interface with your software, I don't have to do any integration on my side, or you don't have a salesman that calls me up and integrates with any of my software program? Is it completely seamless?
Yeah, so what would happen is you decide to sign up for 4Degress, you would get a registration link. But one of the first steps that's asked of you in that is to sync your email and calendar to 4Degress. And so when you hit that, that basically will take you to a page where you'll put in like your Outlook credentials or what have you. Then from there, our product goes backwards in history, as I was describing, and pulls in the historical contacts you communicated with, the interactions underneath them, and enriches a lot of data about them.
So by syncing my calendar, sorry to interrupt you, by syncing my calendar, you have access to my emails?
So usually when you sync Microsoft Exchange, you're syncing both email and calendar together.
Okay.
So what if you have a Gmail account, and what if you have an Outlook work account and a personal Gmail account? And I'm really good friends with this guy over here who's the CEO of this company, and I only communicate with him in Gmail because we're just buddies, and Outlook is my business side and so on. But how did that work? Like, do you upload both accounts, or how's that work?
Yeah, you can sync as many accounts as you like from both Outlook and Gmail, so you're not restricted to one or the other.
Oh, cool.
Can't stump this guy. Did a lot of thinking. You Harvard guys.
Do you have a help desk? Do you have a support desk?
Yeah, so we do have a person on our team who mans the Help Scout account, which is basically the live chat at the bottom of the screen. And so you can reach out to them whenever you want. We also do have a phone number if you need that.
How many trouble tickets do you generate per, however many seats you have active? What's your percentage of trouble tickets to active seats?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. So it also probably depends on like how you define trouble, but like in terms of any inbound question or query that comes to that, we
Yeah.
probably get on the order of like call it 2 or 3 a day. And so we have like what 1,500 seats, 2,000 seats around that. So like yeah, it's like a small, very small percentage, like
That's
sub
good.
1%.
Good.
That's very good. It means it's an intuitive platform. All right, so top of the hour, 3
Those
o'clock.
two people, by the way, those two people are David and I call it.
Tony and anyway, Tony has to get going.
Yes.
Would love to figure out, Ablorde, if there is a way for us to sort of see, because like, you know, HubSpot was painful. It's like I dread going in there. I got to go in there.
Yeah, I would love to. I forgot the term you used to. Not say
Even if we
Spinning
get
up an
like
account's what I said.
a limited free account where you can shut us off if we don't pay. And, you know, I don't have budget to pay right now, so we probably won't be paying. But if it depends, if I love it, you know, we'll figure it out.
Figure it out. But I do want to. I want to touch and feel it. I want to. You know, this is something that we can get excited about. I think, and you know, being able to touch and feel it.
Yeah,
useful.
It's scoring off the charts now.
I'm gonna leave it up to you and Boris to coordinate that. I'll just wait for my email and my link. And really good talking to you again. I got to hop because I got another call coming on right now that I got to jump to.
I actually do too. Thank you guys. So I'll follow up with you on the investment memo and on, you know, the link if possible.
Sounds great. Talk soon.
All right.
Thanks, Lloyd. Bye-bye. See you guys.
See you guys.